Since time immemorial, human beings have been social animals, creatures that seek belonging but also deeply fear isolation. The need to be part of a group has been key to our evolution, but this same urgency to fit in makes us vulnerable to manipulation. History is full of episodes where conformity with the majority has dictated the course of entire societies. Norms, customs, and beliefs have not only been shaped by collective will, but also used as tools of control. Those who have dared to challenge the prevailing opinion have been labeled heretics, dissenters, or madmen. But what happens when that consensus is nothing more than an artificial construct, a meticulously designed illusion to maintain social order? What happens when apparent unanimity is merely a distorted reflection of a silenced reality? In the 1950s, social psychologist Solomon Asch conducted an experiment that revealed a disturbing aspect of human nature. In his study, participants had to evaluate the length of a line compared to others. However, most of them were surrounded by the researcher's accomplices, who deliberately gave incorrect answers. The result was surprising. More than a third of the subjects chose to ignore the evidence of their own senses and align themselves with the group's incorrect response. This finding made it clear that the need for belonging can outweigh the desire for truth. Social pressure, even when implicit, can push people to deny the obvious just to avoid rejection. We then face a dilemma. What is more dangerous, collective error, or the loneliness of those who challenge it? And what happens when this conformity transcends the everyday and embeds itself into the very structure of our society? Decades later, Todd Rose, in his book Collective Illusions, expanded on this idea and took it to an even deeper level. He explains how governments, corporations, and other institutions of power manipulate our perception of reality to make us believe that certain ideologies, values, or narratives are universally accepted when, in reality, many people reject them in private. This creates a paradoxical phenomenon. Each individual, fearing judgment or punishment, hides their true opinion and, without realizing it, reinforces the illusion of unanimity. Thus, a vicious cycle is created in which the silence of many sustains a system in which few actually believe. Conformity is not always spontaneous. Many times, it is the product of careful design, where the manipulation of consensus shapes entire societies. And the most disturbing part of all, in most cases, the very individuals who reinforce the illusion are not even fully aware that they are doing so. One of the most illustrative examples of this phenomenon is the story of the shopkeeper in communist Czechoslovakia, narrated by Havel in The Power of the Powerless. Every morning, the shopkeeper hung a sign in his store with the slogan, "Workers of the world, unite." He did not do so because he genuinely believed in the message, but because it was what everyone did. In a society where dissent was punished, conformity became a matter of survival. His action reinforced the appearance of consensus, making those who passed by his shop assume that he, and by extension the majority, supported the regime. Thus, unwittingly, the shopkeeper became not only a victim of the system, but also its perpetuator. How many more, in different contexts, repeat these dynamics without even realizing it? But one day, something changed. He decided not to hang the sign. It was an apparently simple act, but profoundly subversive. With that small gesture, he broke the charade and allowed others to see that they were not alone in their skepticism. His disobedience, like that of many other brave citizens, contributed to the eventual fall of the communist regime during the Velvet Revolution. Havel expressed it eloquently. By breaking the rules of the game, the shopkeeper destabilized the game itself. What seemed like an insignificant act turned out to be the first step toward a greater transformation. When one person dares to challenge the collective illusion, they open a crack through which the truth can seep. And once the truth begins to leak, the illusion can no longer stand with the same solidity as before. The lesson here is clear. Dissent, no matter how small, has a cascading effect. In societies where the illusion of consensus is imposed, it is enough for a few brave individuals to dare to break the silence for many others to find the courage to do the same. Alexander Solzhenitsyn asserted that a single individual telling the truth can bring down a tyrannical regime. But to achieve this, it is necessary to overcome the fear of isolation and recognize the immense power of authenticity. The price of truth may be high, but the cost of perpetual lies is even greater. And while resistance is not always explicit, sometimes a symbolic act is enough to ignite the spark of change. But not all collective illusions originate in authoritarian regimes or oppressive political systems. In modern society, the media and social networks have amplified this phenomenon in an unprecedented way. In the digital age, the perception of consensus is constructed from algorithms designed to prioritize certain narratives and silence others. A false story repeated enough times becomes truth. An unpopular idea, if presented as widely accepted, generates artificial conformity. And those who doubt the dominant version, even if they are many, fear speaking out because they believe they are alone in their skepticism. Ultimately, history teaches us that oppressive systems rely on fear and conformity to sustain themselves. They are fragile structures that only persist because those who uphold them believe they have no other choice. The question, then, is, will we continue to be cogs in the machine, reinforcing with our silence a reality we do not believe in? Or will we take the risk of living in truth, even when the initial cost is high? Because, as Havel warned, by accepting to live in a lie, we do not merely survive within the system, we become the system. And, in the end, the worst prison is not the one imposed by power, but the one we ourselves accept to build in its service. The collective illusion is, ultimately, an invisible cage. And like any cage, its solidity depends on those inside continuing to believe in it. But it only takes one person to push against the bars to discover how fragile they really are.